Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Our guest today is Louis H. Chappell of Paducah, who recently turned 90. Mr. Chappell was on the program a while back talking about his adventure climbing up the Eiffel Tower and putting on the top of the famous Paris landmark a device to warn Allied aircraft away from it and not to hit it. Mr. Chappell has lots of other stories about his experience in World War II, and we decided to invite him back. We're going to begin with a story that takes place on the 18th of June, 1944 in London. Mr. Chappell had just come into the city from Prestwick up in Scotland. He was in a billet. It was early in the morning. He was in bed. And then he was awakened rather abruptly. Tell us what happened.
Well, I wasn't there alone. I was there with another sergeant, Sergeant George Carey, and we were there just laying over to get our orders to go on a job over at Market Drayton and Willie Moore.
And you were in the Signal Corps?
I was in the Signal Corps. I was a team chief. Of course, I only had 3 men on this trip, but we were staying there at this Red Cross Center, and before right at daylight, we heard the anti-aircraft guns were going off all around us there. It seemed like they were in the next room, and then there was a loud explosion, and it was little light. It wasn't quite daylight yet, but all the windows, glass in the windows came in our room, and our bed sheets were covered with glass. And I looked over at George over there, and he was sitting up in bed, and he had a civilian white jersey on there, and in the center, right in the center of him there, was a circle of blood about 7 inches in diameter. And I said, "George, are you all right?" And he said, "I think so."
Wow.
And we got up, and he got out of bed there, and the glass had nicked, one of the slivers of glass had nicked the lobe of his ear, and he'd been laying down, and that blood had run down here and
collected on his
collected
chest.
all there.
Uh-huh.
In fact, even though it was June the 13th, you'd think it was summertime, we had been in the Azores wearing summertime uniforms and everything. We got to London, it was cold and damp. In fact, we were sleeping there with our long john underwear that night because
British summers are much cooler
it was
than ours.
damp.
Right, right.
So
what caused this huge explosion?
huh?
What caused this huge explosion?
Well, this was the first weapons of the V1, they called it. It was the British called it the buzz bomb because it made a sound like a washing machine motor, 2-cylinder engine going, and the thing was timed to explode, and things.
When the engine cut out,
when the engine
dropped.
cut out, it would either go one way or go up or down, and nobody had it, and you didn't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
this thing hit in the street.
It hit. We were about on the edge of Hyde Park,
Mm-hmm.
and it hit just inside of Hyde Park, which was about maybe 3 blocks away and across the street.
Mm-hmm. And blew a huge hole in the ground.
It blew a huge hole in the ground.
So you went down there to investigate.
I went down there the next morning after I got back from the thing. I went down there and I saw this piece of shrapnel down the bottom of the pit, and I got in there and got it up.
And there it is. You can see it on the camera. That's quite a souvenir to bring that back. We have it with us. And you can see plainly the curvature of it,
Yeah.
which shows the curvature of that
Well,
of that weapon.
The bomb was the whole body of the plane. There was nothing except a little.
It was in effect a cruise missile, is what it was.
Yeah.
And but this thing has really got heft to it. Now there are, I'm sure, chunks much bigger than this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you told me that the day before, you'd actually seen one of these things.
Well, the first day I got back from Prestwick before I got orders and everything, I was standing on the bridge right in front of the Parliament building.
Westminster Bridge, a very famous bridge.
I heard this noise was going over here, and everybody was standing looking up. It was going over. It's just like a slow plane.
What did it look like to you?
It looked like one of those airplanes that you used to throw out.
Yeah, a toy airplane.
Toy airplane.
Yeah. And it was making that buzzing noise.
Yeah, that's what they call it, the buzz bomb.
Yeah, something they call the doodle bug too, but yeah.
But it was Hitler's. The first ones they sent over was on the 13th, when I saw them down there. And this one here was about the 25th one. And they sent a total over the time there that reached the city, 2,300 reached the city, and it was all aimed at the center of London.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Hyde Park is in the city center.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. So the shrapnel, you picked it up and well, where did you stay after that? I mean, your room was ruined, wasn't it? So where did you?
No, it didn't do anything to the room
Just
except
broke
the
the
glass
windows out.
came in there.
Yeah. So they repaired the windows and you all went?
Well, we went down and picked up our orders and got a weapons carrier and drove from there to Reading and those two little cities there.
Mm-hmm.
That was way out in the wilderness.
Oh, that's
almost.
out in the west. Yeah, the west country, the Reading is. Uh-huh.
But it was hard to find your way there because they gave us a slip handwritten of the different towns that we were going to go through, but they didn't tell us that all of the signs of the towns were taken down and destroyed.
They were.
Because they were afraid of German paratroopers dropping and knowing where they were.
Right. So how in the world did a fellow from Paducah, Kentucky, navigate outside the city of London, several miles west of Reading? How did you all find your way out?
Hook or crook. But I could find myself around anywhere I wanted to go in London by their underground.
Right, sure.
And you could do that. I did the same thing with Paris, France. I could go around Paris, France anywhere I wanted to by the metro.
Sure.
Stuff.
So it was from Reading that you all flew over to Normandy, right?
Yeah.
And you flew on a C-47, a cargo plane, across and landed at Colville-sur-Mer.
Yeah.
And you said there was a temporary airstrip built there. Describe the temporary airstrip.
Well, they bulldozed the apple orchard out of the way. We were right in it. In fact, this cemetery is built on the same spot in there that we were put up our antenna out there for our things.
Now, you built the antenna for what? Why were you building an antenna there?
Well, we had to have air ground, and we had to have weather and another channel so the planes could communicate with the airport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the reason it was so important was that was up there. They were still fighting in the hedgerows and
Right.
the bocage there, and they were bringing them in and triaging them.
Wounded soldiers.
Huh?
Wounded soldiers.
Wounded soldiers. And all these C-47s that were coming in were equipped with the hanging things where they hang the stretchers right in there.
Mm-hmm.
In the thing. I think they handled about 15 or 20 of them. And there was a registered nurse on duty of each one of them. In fact, they had them at one time. They had 6 planes going down that runway taking off at the same time, one right after the other. And because it was an apple orchard, they'd bulldozed it off, and they'd put down that steel planking for the airstrip that interlocked, and even though the dirt fell out from under it, it still stayed there. But it was funny to see those planes take off, because after the rains we had, the stuff they'd leveled off sunk, and it was just like an apple orchard is, so, and they'd go down and up just till it finally take off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, now you got there, it was in July.
Yeah.
That was about a little over a month after the invasion.
5 weeks.
Was there a lot of destruction? You could still see a lot of damage from the invasion?
Yeah, well, there was at low tide you could see all those.
The landing craft?
Yeah, they called it Ramo asparagus.
Oh, right, Rommel's asparagus. Yeah, the
asparagus,
beach. Yeah, the beach obstacles.
It was railroad ties, about 5 and 6 feet long, welded together like a ball and jack.
Right, right.
Anyway it moved, it still had to stick in the edges that were in the water to damage the boats when they came in.
Right, 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 right. We were talking earlier that we have a photograph of you and your buddies that were at Colville, and this spot is actually where the famous cemetery is today, the Colville American Normandy Cemetery. That's where the movie Saving Private Ryan was. Now your picture in that group, where are you in that?
I'm standing second from the right.
Standing up.
That's Lieutenant Hank Cozine, and the next one is me. The next one is Ralph Fewson, and the one in the middle, in there you just see his head in the trees, is John Schock and Howard McKinney, and down in the bottom here, the white one there is Irvin Cantor. He was a diesel man. Felipe Ramirez, he was a lineman, and John Thompson was a radio man, and Theodosia Gomez was a lineman, and on the end here is Earl Kirkpatrick. He was a rigger.
And have you kept up with any of the fellows? I mean, any of them? I believe you told me one is living that you know of.
Yeah, the only one I know is Robert Hunter. He lives down in
Tupelo, Mississippi, I believe you told me. Yeah, yeah. And that is the cemetery today, and that's where you all were.
If you see the background of that other picture, it's the same outline of those trees in the back there.
You sure can. Yeah, yeah. That's amazing to see that. Now
that's an apple orchard. Those two trees there are still the trees that were there. They didn't do away with all of them.
Now, I believe you told me that from here you were ordered south to Granville in France.
Well, we went back.
Oh, you went back to England first. That's right. Okay.
We had another picture of us where we were mission accomplished. We were going back. We flew back.
Now, before you went back, that's when you all won the Bronze Star there at Colville. Now, what did you all do to get the Bronze Star?
Well, this is one where we flew back, see?
Yeah, because you can see the date.
Well, I'll explain the casualty.
Okay.
This man there, Earl Kirkpatrick, shaved. Everybody had to shave because we had a gas attack 2-3 times. So everybody was shaving, and somebody had thrown a razor blade into the water bucket, and he cut his finger, and he had to go on the thing. And then that night he went out to relieve himself and stumbled and fell over a tent stop and sprained his wrist.
Oh no! Oh no! Poor fella. Yeah.
Well, when we went back to the Red Cross Center after this, right here, we flew back. He was in there, and everybody's lined up to get a coffee and stuff, and he had everybody step back. These men are just back from the front.
With his wound, right?
No, if you can flip back to that one where in the cemetery tree. There.
Yeah,
See
right.
those poles laying there?
Yes.
Well, we had plywood poles that they set, was a temporary thing, and they put together like a fish, in 10-foot lengths, and they had a plate in the center with the guy wires exactly right on each, and in 30 minutes you could put it up and it'd be stable with a pulley up the top. We didn't have that. It was just one big long fishing pole. So we found a telephone depot base like you used to have here at the plant center here. And we snaked and took our line truck and drug 16 30-foot poles and spliced them to where we could get a 50-foot pole back over where we put them. And got that on the air, and that was the 18th. This was about the 18th of July, and we had it finished by about the 20th of July. That was the day that we heard that Hitler was attempted to assassinate.
Exactly. Sure. Sure.
And that was another one of my what ifs. What if somebody hadn't moved that bomb from the post
right,
where it was
exactly.
back of the
Exactly.
back of the piano leg
Right.
of that table?
Right.
Hitler would have been killed and the war would have been over.
That's yeah. Yeah.
And we would have had 10 months less of fighting and
Yeah.
deaths.
And a whole lot fewer men killed. That's exactly right. So then you all went back to England after that from Normandy?
Yeah, we went back from Normandy we went back on the 4th of August. And we were back again on the 8th of August. The only thing we'd added was 4 more men on the team. And we came back to go to Granville, France, because we put in the radio installations for Toohey Spatz, General Toohey Spatz. He had a strategic
The airman, Carl Spatz, absolutely, sure, sure.
of
Yeah,
Berlin.
exactly, right.
And he was established in Granville. Well, when we got back, we needed a 2.5-ton truck that they're supposed to have had one for us, and they didn't have it there, so they gave me a trip ticket, driver's license, and I rode a Jeep up to Cherbourg to Kirkyville, which was a little town there where the airport was, and got that 2.5-ton truck. I'd never driven a 2.5-ton truck before in my life. And I got in it, and they showed me where the ignition was and where the gear was, and I started out. That was, anyway, and the rest of my men and the lieutenant went down to Granville. Well, here I was coming along,
Going down, you could say, oh, sure, there's Granville,
Yeah.
and you're coming down.
well, right up there. I was up there on that straight line coming
right,
down here.
Right.
Well,
right.
we were fighting. There was Felice and Argentan down here,
Right.
and they closed that pocket.
And that white area, that's where the Germans were.
That's where the Germans were. Now there was three armies in there. To the right up here, there was Canadians were fighting there, and British. Then the next one was the First Army, which was Bradley.
Right.
And they were coming around and they circled. And then when they got down here, they split off down at the bottom down here and created the Third Army, which was Patton.
Sure.
And he was going up.
Yeah.
Patton was
So the Germans are driving to. They're coming toward you.
yeah, and Patton was down here in this bulge up there.
Right.
And Bradley stopped him from bombing ahead because right on that other side over there were the Canadians, and Eisenhower didn't want friendly fire killing each other. But all the time that bulge was out there, they were trying to get over here. Granville's over here right on the ocean, see? and I was driving this truck at the same time down that straight line down there to Granby.
Yeah, yeah. You told me some story about a convoy that was behind you. What
Well,
was it?
I was driving that truck. It was a canvas top and canvas thing, not a thing in it. I was ahead. I had a whole, and Cherbourg was up 7,000 feet above sea level. And they come in winding roads down there. And I had a convoy behind me, about 20 trucks. And they couldn't pass, and I couldn't get out of the way. Out of the way. So finally I came to a lookout on the thing, and I pulled off out of the way and let them go by. Well, it was a convoy of truckload of, they all had cans of gasoline. They was going down there to supply the troops, so they had the fuel for the tanks and things down there.
And you were holding them up.
If they'd have known what I was doing, I'd have been court-martialed.
So you got to Granville safely, though.
Yeah.
And then where did you go from there?
Well, they captured Paris on the 25th of August, and General Spatz moved his outfit and office and everything to Paris, and he located in Saint-Germain, which was out there where the Germans had their headquarters. It was a convent, ladies' Catholic Church convent, I think. They had about 7 or 8 buildings that they'd all taken over.
Now, earlier on, you went to some other rather interesting places. Casablanca, you were there.
Well, when we flew from the Azores, we flew from the Azores on the 30th of May. And you know what the 30th of May was? It was a pre-ultra, I got the name of it. Anyway, it's a word, pre-ultra something. It means the last day before the actually last day. The 30th of the day of the month is a pre-multiplication or something, a day, but it's a day before the last of the day. It's always the 30th before the 31st.
Right. Well, now, one of the things we were talking about, of course, the Azores, no trees there to speak of, are there?
No. Well, you in Normandy, what they call the bocage, there was century-old roots and stuff had grown up. They got the same thing in the Azores, except they're different crops. But the only division from them was a little small fence of the lava rocks that they'd picked up, maybe 2 foot high. But they had corn and wheat and barley and sweet potatoes and pineapple even in the thing.
Now, while you were going along, I know you collected autographs on money.
Yeah.
One of the bills that you have in your collection is a signature of a famous American actor named Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah.
How did you get that? And there it is. That's a French banknote, I believe. And so how did you get Edward G. Robinson to sign that money for you?
Well, he was there as a entertainer with the troops. It was on when we were on Normandy the first time. They had a thing.
And you just walked up to him and said, "Can you sign my money?"
Well, he was signing everybody's thing.
Yeah.
In fact, he signed it with his real name. I don't think his name was Edwin. It looked like he signed Robert.
I don't know. Yeah, that was a stage name. You're right about that. It was. You also got some other autographs. Famous autographs.
I flew back. We flew from the Azores to Casablanca before we flew from there to the airport in below London. But while we were there, we had to. They took different planes. Another buddy, Ascoli, I think, and I flew on a B-25 Liberator bomber, and the passengers, 2 passengers on that were foreign correspondents. One of them was Larry Burkhardt, and the other one was Bill Hurst.
Whose daughter was Patty Hurst.
Whose daughter was Patty Hurst. Of course, that was in the future.
Right, of course, sure.
He was a future
Right.
father.
Future father, right.
But
and he autographed, was it a Moroccan banknote?
no, they
Yeah,
they did one a pound. Yeah, that's a Moroccan.
Yeah, it is. And there they are. Yeah. What were they like, these correspondents? Just regular folks? What were they like, the correspondents?
Well, they had a kind of a darker green uniform. They were all second lieutenants, I think.
And what did you all talk about going over with them? Do you remember?
No, I was talking about going back. They were flying back to London. In fact, I don't think he was we were on, but they were flying John W. Vandercook back, and he was the man that announced the D-Day invasion.
Wow. Wow.
And I heard that in Prestwick, Scotland, when Eisenhower made the announcement.
One thing we've talked about before, but certainly worth mentioning again, is your house key. Where did you keep your house key during the war?
Well, you know, those two things for dog tags. I had it hanging on one of them, a dog tag.
Yeah.
It was aluminum, so it wasn't any bother.
But it was home to you.
Yeah.
And so when you came home, describe your homecoming. We're just about out of time, but describe your homecoming. When you got back to Paducah, what was that like?
Well, I was discharged from Camp Atterbury, Indiana. I took a bus from there to Louisville. I took the train from Louisville to Paducah. And when I was coming here, I came across the
dam?
The dam bridge. There, it was midnight, but they had the lights on the thing, and the conductors told us we was passing over the Kentucky Dam. And I got out at the Union Depot out here.
Yeah.
I got a taxi cab home, and I wanted to pay the taxi cab, and he wouldn't take my money. He did it for nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was 2:43 in the morning, and I used my key to open the door, and my dog was there. My dog was named Dog. I mean Tagged.
Tag.
So
Yeah.
after the dog. Anyway, he barked at me, and then I called his name, and he come running and jumped in my arms. I knew then I'd made it.
You were home. We're out of time. Thank you very much. My guest today was Lewis Chappell. I'm Barry Craig. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.